We are pleased to be joined by Angelo J, Genova, Chairman and Managing Partner of Genova Burns, one of the top law firms in the region. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Steve.
I also want to say that your firm is one of the many folks supporting the public affairs programming that we do on State of Affairs. Angelo, you're an expert when it comes to a whole range of issues having to do with campaign laws, campaign finance, but we didn't have you here for that. You are concerned about the two-party system, A, and B, what it means to our nation. Make the case.
Well, I'm concerned on a lot of levels. It starts with the fact that when you go back in history, you know, the founders didn't contemplate this idea that we would have two parties. And it evolved over time, and it has served us well. In fact, it served us very well through centuries. I think what's happened, though, is that the parties as institutions for developing candidates, as institutions for raising money, as institutions for establishing policies, have been displaced. And they've been displaced by the media as communicators. They've been displaced by independent expenditures, super PACs as vehicles to raise money. The discipline that came with the development of party platforms are gone, and candidacies are all candidate-centered. They're not party-centered.
Is that how a Donald Trump becomes the nominee, 16 candidates in the GOP primary, and then becomes president? Is that part of the reason?
I think it's
more complex, I know.
Yeah, but I think it's part of the reason because there's a path that becomes available to a Donald Trump or to a candidate like Donald Trump where there's not a dependency on the party. And what typically happens, if you look over the last decade or so, you have individual or candidate-centered politics. The person gets the nomination, and then the party folds into that person. So the party gets defined by that person, and Trump is a great example of that. And the question is that are people, and if you ask the average Joe, they're voting for a candidate.
Not the party.
They're not as identified with the party, I've observed.
More and more independence?
More and more independence.
Well, what does an independent really mean?
Well, independent means I ask yourself this question: why is it that 40% of the electorate doesn't want to identify with a party? They don't want to identify with a party. Either they don't know it, they feel that they don't want to be beholden to an ideology, they want a sense of freedom, whether you want to call it a libertarian sensibility or whatever, but that they're not about the party, they're about the candidate, and they'll choose their candidate based on the issues.
Is there something wrong with that? Sorry for interrupting, Angelo. Is there something, not wrong, I don't want to say it that way, is there something dangerous about that?
I kind of think there is because, you know, I use a metaphor that might sound silly to people, but it's, you know, kind of like the arranged marriage. The arranged marriage of centuries ago, parents got together and said...
Are you talking about our ancestors from southern Italy right now?
Yes, we are. We're talking about that. But the point is when we had a party where there were party leaders who vetted candidates, and some would say that we were backroom deals, we got some great candidates. We got John Kennedy. We got Franklin Roosevelt. When the party apparatus is lost, when there isn't this mechanism where people vet themselves, where they evaluate themselves, where they're trained, where there's no organizational support for the development of candidates, then I think it's problematic. Now, some would say, well, the open primary, that's the most democratic.
Right.
You know, my sense is, yeah, that offers democracy, but if you don't have a counterbalance, if you don't have a political apparatus that develops people, develops candidates, then I think it puts at risk people's willingness to support political parties.
Angelo, the other thing you mentioned about the media, it's so interesting. I mean, we in public broadcasting try to approach these issues from a comprehensive, analytical perspective, bring on people who are thoughtful and with different points of view. But some of our colleagues, and this is not meant to disparage the folks in commercial cable, if you will, broadcasting, but if you listen on a nightly basis, it doesn't feel and sound like this. It doesn't. I'm not saying we're better. I'm saying the divisiveness that we often hear on cable news on a nightly basis and the demonizing of each other. Does that worry you?
Sure it does. I recently watched a documentary on the 1968 election in the United States that showed how the original debates between Gore Vidal and William Buckley.
Incredible.
Yeah, were the, some would say, is the seminal event that provoked what we see on Cablevision today. I think the incivility...
Talk about mean and nasty.
Sure, in the absence of merit-based discourse. It's troubling, and we don't have merit-based discourse in a lot of venues. If you look at the political parties, are they venues for merit-based discourse? Are they genuinely places where we bring everybody under the tent, come to solutions, or are they driven by factions within the parties? I mean, the big debate right now is whether the Democratic Party is being driven by one element of the party, no differently than how the Republican Party was driven over the last decade. So if parties are supposed to be the big tent, if you will, the vehicle for mitigating
the vetting,
right, to come up with platforms. I mean, you ask the average Democrat if they've ever read the platform of the Democratic Party. Do they really identify with the brand? Do they know what that brand means? You know, at the turn of the last century, I tend to like history, but at the turn of the last century, the platform mattered. People voted for the platform. They weren't candidate-centered.
In the time we have left, Angelo, is the platform of the Democratic Party, by the way, in our new series, Think Tank, produced right here out of NJTV Studios, we're going to be talking about one of the first shows, The Future of the Democratic Party. Do people say, the future of the Democratic Party, is it Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, you know, in New York? Is it Cory Booker? Is it someone in the Senate? Is it Mikey Sherrill? My point is, it's based on not policies so much, but people.
Well, but there's a fundamental question every political party has to ask. Is this about winning in a ballot box? Or is this about ascribing to a set of principles that may not get you elected? And I think that's true in both parties.
What should it be, in your opinion?
Well, I think a party should have principles. I think people should subscribe to those principles. I think people should be accountable to those principles. But if a party truly wants to operate in the big tent, those principles has to embrace the philosophies of many people.
As opposed to a few seconds left, if you're not with us on this, we're not compromising, forget it. We'd rather lose than compromise, you say?
Well, I say to that is that it's more important to find your way into public office to make a difference than it is to subscribe solely to principles that can't get you there.
Angelo Genova has been working at this for a long time with a lot of folks. He is the chairman and managing partner of Genova Burns, a law firm based right
here in the great city of Newark.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Stay right there. This is State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We'll catch you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by NJM Insurance Group, Choose New Jersey, the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, Berkeley College, and by Summit Medical Group.